Well, folks, here we are again for the weekly forecast. Yet again, another major storm moved across the Central Plains and dumped some significant snowfall once again across western Nebraska. And we've received reports of in excess of 6 inches of snow, and of course, with some heavy winds, there was a lot of blowing and drifting, shut the interstate down from Big Springs westward toward the Wyoming border. Farther to our east, some fairly significant rainfall across much of Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Iowa, Minnesota, Michigan, all of those areas, at least 2 inches of moisture, and we've heard individual reports of up to 8 inches of moisture. So we've gone from excessively wet conditions to excessively wet conditions, and we're going to have some planting delay issues in this region, and it's going to take considerable time to dry out. Here in Nebraska, we welcome this moisture, and we're halfway through the month, and most locations of the state have received almost their normal allocation of precipitation for the month of April, with a few that have been over that by almost 100%. So we are basically taking away these deficits that have been accumulating since last fall, but we still have a core area of significant deficits centered in the north central Platte River Valley and in the eastern Sandhills, and we'll look for successive precipitation events to try to eliminate those deficits. Now, are we going to receive enough warm weather here to get planting underway? Well, we do have a couple days of warmth before it cools down, but there are increasing signs in the models that very warm weather is going to start to invade the state, particularly as we get into late next weekend and the entire following week. So it does look like the conditions are starting to improve in terms of planting. So let's get right away to the models and see if we've got any significant moisture events in our forecast, at least in the near term. And as we go to the upper air models, what we'll notice is we do have a northwest flow that is moderated and is pushing much of the colder air to our east. There is a couple little waves that are going to be moving through this system, particularly the one today is going to be moving across the Dakotas, and it looks like if anybody's going to receive precipitation, it would be extreme northern Nebraska. And right now it just looks like scattered chances of light precipitation as you farther you head south, where the drier the conditions are going to be. As we get into tomorrow, we'll see another piece of energy trying to dive down, and this is a system that's expected to start invading northern Nebraska as we get into tomorrow night, and then that will continue to push through the state all day on Monday. And by the time we get to Monday, we'll notice that this system starts to sag much farther southward. It looks like the models have been backing off on the amount of precipitation with this system, with the best chances of significant accumulations across the Dakotas, and then we'd be looking at generally a quarter to a half an inch at best across the eastern half of the state. And by the time we get to Tuesday, this system is going to shift well to our east. That's going to bring the cold air on the back side of it, so we're going to see that significant cool down once again. But it does look like that's going to be the end of significant moisture events. As we get into Wednesday, most of that cold air starts pooling across the eastern Great Lakes, and we basically are just going to be rotating energy around this, which may give us a chance of sprinkles here and there, but it doesn't look like we're going to see any widespread heavy precipitation. By the time we get to Thursday, we'll see that the ridge tries to build in, so this trough is starting to lift up toward the Great Lakes, and we'll start to see a little bit warmer conditions. And by the time we get to Friday, now the cold air shifts toward the Great Lakes, and you can see this big ridge is going to be pushing in as we get into late next week, and that signals a very dramatic warm-up that we could easily be seeing temperatures consistently back in the 60s and 70s. As we look at the temperature forecast, we're going to be looking at some fairly warm conditions this weekend compared to what we've been accustomed to. And then we see that cool down as we get into Monday, and there may be a chance of some scattered snow, especially during the overnight hours, Sunday night into Monday morning. We see some cool conditions on Tuesday, and then a general warming trend as we get through the end of the week. If we look at the 8 to 14 day forecast, that cold air starts to shift well to our east, see the warmth building into our region, and in terms of precipitation, this dry pattern starts to establish itself very dramatically over the Central Plains.